Dear viewers, dear listeners, welcome to a program with thought-provoking content. It concerns the following question, which, it must be said, people have been asking themselves again and again for many centuries, right up to the present day. Christ announced his return in spirit 2,000 years ago when he said to his disciples, "I come soon." What does it mean if he actually comes again? Fyodor Dostoevsky also dealt with this question in detail in his 1880 novel, The Brothers Karamazov. It concerns a story with the novel entitled The Grand Inquisitor. It bears the epithet fantasy and is often dismissed as such. However, for many, the name Dostoevsky is the epitome of astuteness and reflection on fundamental questions of life. The novel, The Brothers Karamazov, is about several brothers who meet again after many years. They have all led completely different lives. It bears the epithet fantasy. In a pub, two of the brothers discuss the meaning of life. However, for many, the name Dostoevsky, Alyosha, the youngest of the brothers, is the student of a priest monk, and he condemns his intellectual brother Ivan's atheistic attitude to life, in which everything is permitted because there is no God. Ivan responds to this with the story of the Grand Inquisitor, which is set in Seville in the 16th century Spain. According to his story, at that time, the funeral pyres were blazing there every day, and it was exactly there that Christ reappeared. Today, we'll hear the first of three parts, in which everything is permitted. Alyosha asks his brother, "You've written a poem?" "Oh no, I didn't write it," counters Ivan, laughing. "I've never written 2 lines of poetry in my life, but I made up this poem in prose. Shall I tell it to you or not?" And it was exactly there that Christ reappeared. "Yes, I'm listening," said Alyosha. "We'll hear the first of 3 parts. My poem is called The Grand Inquisitor. It's a ridiculous story, but I want to tell it to you." "You've written a poem?" After a short introduction, Ivan begins as follows. Owing to his limitless mercy, he mixes once more with mortals, and in the same form in which he was wont to appear 15 centuries ago when he stayed among the people for 33 years. Shall I tell it to you or not? He descends just at the very moment when days before, in the presence of king, courtiers, knights, cardinals, and the fairest dames of court, before the whole population of Seville, upwards of 100 wicked heretics are being roasted in a magnificent auto da fe ad majorem Dei gloriam by the order of the powerful Cardinal Grand Inquisitor. He mixes once more with mortals. And in the same he comes silently and unannounced. Yet all, how strange, yea, all recognize him at once. The population rushes towards him as if propelled by some irresistible force. It surrounds, throngs, and presses around. It follows him, silently and with a smile of boundless compassion upon his lips. He crosses the dense crowd and moves softly on. The sun of love burns in his heart, and warm rays of light, wisdom and power beam from his eyes, and pour down their waves upon the swarming multitudes of the rabble assembled around, making their hearts vibrate with returning love. He extends his hands over their heads, blesses them, and from mere contact with him, aye, even with his garments, a healing power goes forth. It surrounds. An old man, blind from his birth, cries, Lord, heal me, that I may see thee. He crosses the dense crowd, and the scales falling off the closed eyes, the blind man beholds him. And warm rays of light, wisdom and power. The crowd weeps for joy and kisses the ground upon which he treads. Children strew flowers along his path and sing to him, Hosanna! It is he. It is himself. They say to each other, it must be he. It can be none other but he. He pauses at the portal of the old cathedral of Seville, just as a wee white coffin is carried in, with tears and great lamentations. The lid is off, and in the coffin lies the body of a fair child, 7 years old, the only child of an eminent citizen of the city. The little corpse lies buried in flowers. He will raise the child to life, confidently shouts the crowd to the weeping mother. Children strew flowers along the officiating priest, who had come to meet the funeral procession, looks perplexed and frowns. It must be he. It can be none other but he. A loud cry is suddenly heard, and the bereaved mother prostrates herself at his feet. If it be you, then bring back my child to life, she cries beseechingly. The lid is off, and in the coffin lies the body of the procession halts, and the little coffin is gently lowered at his feet. The little corpse lies. Divine compassion beams forth from his eyes, and as he looks at the child, his lips are heard to whisper once more, Talita cumi, and straightway the damsel arose. The funeral procession looks perplexed. The child rises in her coffin. Her little hands still hold the nosegay of white roses which after death was placed in them. And looking round with large astonished eyes, she smiles sweetly. The crowd is violently excited. A terrible commotion rages among them. The populace shouts and loudly weeps when suddenly, before the cathedral door, appears the Cardinal Grand Inquisitor himself. And as he looks at the child, his lips are... He is tall, gaunt-looking old man of nearly 80 years and 10, with a stern, withered face and deeply sunken eyes, from the cavity of which glitter 2 fiery sparks. Her little hands still hold. He has laid aside his gorgeous cardinal's robes in which he had appeared before the people at the auto da fe of the enemies of the Roman Church, and is now clad in his old, rough, monkish cassock. A terrible commotion rages among them. The populace, his sullen assistants and slaves of the Holy Guard are following at a distance. The Cardinal Grand Inquisitor himself. He pauses before the crowd and observes. He has seen all. He has witnessed the placing of the little coffin at his feet, the calling back to life. And now his dark, grim face has grown still darker. His bushy grey eyebrows nearly meet, and his sunken eye flashes with sinister light. Slowly raising his finger, he commands his minions to arrest him. Such is his power over the well-disciplined, submissive and now trembling people that the thick crowds immediately give way, and scattering before the guard amid dead silence and without one breath of protest, allow them to lay their sacrilegious hands upon the stranger and lead him away. He has seen all. He has witnessed that same populace, like one man, now bows its head to the ground before the old Inquisitor, who blesses it and slowly moves onward. His bushy grey eyebrows nearly meet. The guards conduct their prisoner to the ancient building of the Holy Tribunal. Pushing him into a narrow, gloomy, vaulted prison cell, they lock him in and retire. The day wanes, and night, a dark, hot, breathless Spanish night, creeps on and settles upon the city of Seville. The air smells of laurels and orange blossoms. In the Cimmerian darkness of the the old tribunal hall, the iron door of the cell is suddenly thrown open, and the Grand Inquisitor, holding a dark lantern, slowly stalks into the dungeon. He is alone, and as the heavy door closes behind him, he pauses at the threshold and, for a minute or two, silently and gloomily scrutinizes the face before him. At last, approaching with measured steps, he sets his lantern down upon the table and addresses him in these words. "Is it you? You?" But receiving no answer, he quickly adds, "Do not answer. Be silent. After all, what could you say? I know too well what you would say, and you have no right to add even one word to what you already said once. Why then have you come to interfere with us? For you have come to interfere with us, and you know it yourself. But do you know what will happen tomorrow?" Scrutinizes the face before him. "I do not know who you are, and I do not want to know whether it is you or only his likeness. But tomorrow I shall condemn you and burn you at the stake as the most evil of heretics, and the very people who today kissed your feet, tomorrow at a nod from me will rush to heap the coals up around your stake. Do you know that?" Why then have you come to interfere with us? Yes, perhaps you do know it, he added, pondering deeply, never for a moment taking his eyes from his prisoner. But do you know what will happen tomorrow? I don't quite understand what this is, Ivan. Alyosha, who all the while had been listening silently, smiled. Is it boundless fantasy or some mistake on the old man's part? As the most evil of heretics, and the very people assume it's the latter if you like. Ivan laughed. If you're so spoiled by modern realism and can't stand anything fantastic, if you want it to be qui pro quo, let it be. Yes, of course. He laughed again. The man is 90 years old and might have lost his mind long ago over his idea. He might have been struck by the prisoner's appearance. Alyosha, who all the while had been listening silently, smiled. It might finally have been simple delirium, the vision of a 90-year-old man nearing death, and who is excited, besides, by the auto-da-fe of 100 burnt heretics the day before. So spoiled by modern realism and can't stand anything fantastic. But isn't it all the same to you and me, whether it's qui pro quo or boundless fantasy? Of course. He laughed again. The only thing that the old man needs to speak out is that, finally, after all his 90 years, he does so and says aloud for justification all that he has been silent about for 90 years. And the prisoner is silent too? Just looks at him without saying a word? But that must be so. In any case, Ivan laughed again. The old man himself points out to him that he has no right to add anything to what has already been said once. That, if you like, is the most basic feature of Roman Catholicism, in my opinion at least. Everything, they say, has been handed over by you to the Pope. Therefore, everything now belongs to the Pope, and you may as well not come at all now, or at least don't interfere with us for the time being. They not only speak this way, they also write this way. At least the Jesuits do. I've read myself in the works of their theologians. But that must be so. In any case, Ivan continues. The old man himself points out, have you the right to proclaim to us even one of the mysteries of that world from which you have come? My old man asks him and answers the question himself. In my opinion, at least. No, you have not. so as not to add to what has already been said once, and so as not to deprive people of freedom, for which you stood so firmly when you were on earth. Anything you proclaim anew will encroach upon the freedom of men's faith, for it will come as a miracle. I've read myself in the works of their theologians. And the freedom of their faith was the dearest of all things to you, even then, 1,500 years ago. Was it not you who so often said then, "I want to make you free"? But now you have seen these free men, the old man suddenly adds with a pensive smile. So as not to add to what has already been said. Yes, this work has cost us dearly, he goes on, looking sternly at him. But we have finally finished this work in your name. For 1,500 years we have been at pains over this freedom. But now it is finished, and well finished. Was the dearest of all things to you, even then. You do not believe that it is well finished? You look at me meekly and do not deign even to be indignant with me? Know then that now, precisely now, these people are more certain than ever before that they are completely free. And at the same time, they themselves have brought us their freedom and obediently laid it at our feet. It is our doing, but is it what you wanted? This sort of freedom?
An dieser Stelle unterbricht Aljoscha die Rede seines Bruders Ivan, weil glaubt.
At this point, Alyosha interrupts his brother Ivan's speech because he thinks he's making fun of Christ. In the next part of the story, however, we'll learn from the Grand Inquisitor that he is very proud of the fact that the Church has relieved people of the heavy burden of freedom, and that, in his view, Jesus made a big mistake by rejecting Satan's 3 temptations. And the Grand Inquisitor later reveals, there are 3 powers, only 3 powers on earth, which are capable of conquering and holding captive forever the conscience. These are miracle, mystery, and authority. But more of this in the second part of Dostoevsky's tale from the 5th chapter of his novel, The Brothers Karamazov.
Liebe Zuschauerinnen, liebe Zuschauer,
Dear viewers, dear listeners, I would be glad when you join us again for the next program. Goodbye, and greetings in God. Forever. The conscience. These are miracle, mystery, and authority. But more of this in the second part of Dostoevsky's tale from the 5th chapter of his novel, The Brothers Karamazov. Dear viewers, dear listeners, I would be glad when you join us again for the next program. Goodbye, and greetings in God.
Dear
friends of the free communities, a very warm welcome. In the free communities, we share about what God, the Eternal, teaches today through the prophetic word and what experiences we have had with these teachings. One of the books given from the Divine Wisdom is called The Great Cosmic Teachings of Jesus of Nazareth to His Apostles and Disciples who could understand them. and an excerpt from it can also be read in a small booklet from the series The Message of Truth. It contains the following words from Christ. Just as I serve all, souls, people, animals, plants, and stones, you too should selflessly serve all those around you, people, animals, plants, and stones. Gabriele, the teaching prophetess and emissary of God, explains. Day after day, we can recognize to what extent selfless serving has already become our life. Let us monitor ourselves. Let us look at nature. The eternal Spirit serves every little flower and every little animal. It serves every stone. And we? Do we take the stone and thoughtlessly toss it away? Or do we respect and look at it? Do we tear out the little flower? Or do we bend down and thank it in our sensations for radiating to us? What about the animals? Do we deliberately tread on the little animal, or do we step around it and let it continue? Or do we take it away from where it is and set it down in another place, somewhat to the side, so that nothing will happen to it? We can recognize ourselves in our behavior toward our second neighbor. These words certainly bring to mind something from our own lives, and I am very grateful for this help, since it has shown me where I can still learn so much and put it into practice. For example, I remember once when I was taking care of the roses in the garden. They radiate lovingly to us, and through them, God, the All-Unity, also speaks to us. Unfortunately, my thoughts were totally somewhere else when I suddenly remembered this message of truth and was able to pause and begin to establish some loving communication from my side toward our second neighbor. And these feelings are also good for our own soul, such a small everyday experience. And of course, especially when I am dealing with people, I can recognize myself whether I have already taken some steps towards selfless service or where I have not yet succeeded. Every day brings me a lot to learn.
The teachings from the divine wisdom are real pearls for each one seeking God, no matter how old we are, no matter from what culture we come. These teachings are simply universal. I also brought along a message of truth with me, in which one can find excerpts from the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus of Nazareth, with explanations by Gabriele. The small brochure is called The Sermon on the Mount, The Path to a Fulfilled Life. In connection with the sentence, love your enemies, it says, for if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Gabriele explained about this. Therefore, accept and receive your neighbor in your heart, even if he does not love you, even when he does not stand by you and ignores you by refusing to greet you. Do love him. Do stand by him selflessly, and do greet him, even if it is only in thought, when he does not wish to be greeted with words. Give selfless love as the sun gives to the earth, and respect all people, all beings. Do not flatter people. Do not discriminate, like people who associate only with those who think and act the same way, and condemn those who think and act otherwise. When he does not stand by you and ignores you. I think everyone knows that we prefer to surround ourselves with people who like us or who are likable. And In my experience, people whom I initially rejected or by whom I felt rejected have often helped me progress on the path to God. Because then I have to look at myself. What do the others criticize about me? Which is perhaps why I don't like them, but unfortunately they are right. Or what behavior of mine has caused another person to reject or dislike me? I always find answers to these questions and can change something in myself. And what's interesting is that it's often with people with whom things were initially difficult that something good and valuable develops, and a link is formed that is characterized by mutual respect rather than superficial affinity. Dear viewers, dear listeners, dear friends, the teachings from the divine wisdom are a great treasure with deep insights with which everyone can learn for their life. In the next program in this series, we will continue reading and learning. Will you join us? In any case, we will be glad when you tune in again. Until then, a greeting from the heart. Link and be God with us. Things were initially difficult, that something good and valuable develops, and a link is formed that is characterized by mutual respect rather than superficial affinity. Dear viewers, dear listeners, dear friends, the teachings from the divine wisdom are a great treasure with deep insights with which everyone can learn for their life. In the next program in this series, we will continue reading and learning. Will you join us? In any case, we will be glad when you tune in again. Until then, a greeting from the heart. Link and be God with us. In any case, we will be glad when you tune in again. Until then, a greeting from